Hi everyone and welcome to this chapter-wise trivia, celebrity cameos and connections to Star Wars for The Mandalorian Season 2 up until chapter 14. Let's start with chapter 9, The Marshal. Mando and the kid land up on a planet to meet an alien called Gor Koresh, who is voiced by John Leguizamo. He's famous for his Ice Age roles as Sid the Sloth. His voice is almost unrecognizable. When Mando meets up with him, he says about one of the fighters in the ring, "My Gamorrean's not doing well." Gamorrean reminded me about Gamora from the Guardians of the Galaxy. The way Mando interrogates Gor Koresh by stringing him upside down over a light pole is kind of reminiscent of how Christian Bale, when he was playing the Dark Knight, hauled up the corrupt Detective Flass a few flights of fire escapes up to ask him a few questions. Or, if you prefer, it looks like Kirsten Dunst kissing an upside down Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man. The only difference between these two and the Mando scene is that it was pouring rain in those two scenes. Gor Koresh sends Mando and the kid in search of other Mandalorians to the legendary planet Tatooine, which is home to the Skywalkers. On Tatooine, Amy Sedaris is the mechanic, far from the Jason Statham action series. She guides Mando to an outback mining post, which is marshaled by Timothy Olyphant, playing Cobb Vanth. Together with the Tusken Raiders, who are famous as Sand People from the original Star Wars trilogy, they overcome an acid-spitting, bantha-chomping, subterranean Krayt dragon by blowing him up from the inside. This gets Mandalorian Boba Fett's armor from the Marshal, and Boba Fett is shown to be watching from a distance as Mando and the kid ride away. Right at the beginning of chapter 10, The Passenger, Mando and the kid are ambushed. They escape pretty easily, and he calls back his jetpack with the arm controls that he has. In hindsight, it seems apparent that he should have done the same thing. In chapter 14, the passenger is Frog Lady, and as soon as her eggs appear on screen, Baby Yoda's eyes light up and fixate on them. You know he's going to eat them. So Mando, the kid, and Frog Lady get on their way to the planet he's supposed to take her to. But on the way, there's communication breakdown. So he tries to speak Huttese to her, which is the language spoken by Jabba the Hutt, that evil warlord who actually employed Boba Fett to capture Han Solo in Carbonite, and who also chained up one of our favorite actresses, Carrie Fisher. R.I.P. The X-Wings that confront Mando want to take him to an outpost called Adelphi. This, in ancient Greek, meant brothers, and it's also the name of a famous theatre in West End of London. To overcome the language barrier, Frog Lady takes over the voice box of a droid, and this is voiced by Richard Ayoade. Richard is famous for his character Moss on The IT Crowd, which was hilarious. Richard is an alumni of the Cambridge Footlights, which is also where Monsieur Stephen Fry got his acting chops. The alien spider family that gets after Mando, the kid, and Frog Lady and her eggs is very reminiscent of Aragog, the Harry Potter arachnid that Hagrid had kept as a pet. This chapter, chapter 10, was directed by Peyton Reed, who has recently done the Ant-Man films in the MCU. For chapter 11, The Heiress, Bryce Dallas Howard took a leaf out of her dad, Ron Howard's book, and recreated the re-entry scene of Apollo 13. Apollo 13 was an awesome space movie starring America's dad, Tom Hanks. Side note, Forrest Gump is getting remade into an Indian language movie called Lal Singh Chadda, starring Amir Khan. It's awesome that Frog Lady is played by the same actress who did the motion capture for Quill in the first season. Her name? Misty Rosas. Sweet, isn't it? Katie Sackhoff has voiced the character that she plays in live action, Bo-Katan, in the hugely popular Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels animated series. Her character's name, Bo-Katan, is another example of how Star Wars uses familiar human names. This serves a dual purpose, like Ahsoka Tano's dual lightsabers. It basically humanizes the aliens and it gives their name a subtle subtext. A bow is actually a long staff, usually wooden, which comes from Japanese martial arts. And a katana is a single-edged, two-handed sword that was made famous by the bride character played by Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. Another side note, literally this time, there is Uma Thurman in Pulp Fiction. This is a good time to point out that the music director of The Mandalorian, Ludwig Göransson, also won the Academy Award for his work on Black Panther, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. Also, he has done pretty solid work with Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover from Community. In fact, I think they met for the first time on the sets of Community. Goes to show, spirals can go anywhere. The action-packed Chapter 11 adds another powerful ally to Mando's growing army in the eventual showdown against Moff Gideon, played awesomely by Giancarlo Esposito, who has very well-deserved fame for playing the bad guy in Breaking Bad. In the next chapter, Mando and the kid meet up with old allies Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano, and Grief Karga, played by Carl Weathers. Go ahead and check out my Hyperdrive Superfast review of that chapter in the link below. In chapter 13, guided by what Bo-Katan had told him, he meets Ahsoka Tano and she guides him to an ancient Jedi temple on another planet so that he can take Baby Yoda, now known as Grogu, back to his kind, the Jedi. And now we arrive at the latest episode that came out last week and which is the build-up to this upcoming episode. Chapter 14, The Tragedy. As directed by Ahsoka Tano, Mando and the kid reach the planet Tython, but the ancient temple they are supposed to go to is on the top of a mountain, so they have to park the Razor Crest a few miles away. Mando and the kid jetpack up to the temple, where he puts Baby Yoda on top of the stone as Ahsoka Tano had directed him. At that time, he sees another spaceship land in, and so he tries to get Grogu and get out of there, but by this time Grogu has set up an awesome Jedi Force antenna and is now protected by its force field. The two newcomers, Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, are awesome characters from earlier in the series. Ming-Na Wen plays Fennec Shand, and she obviously has a good handle on sci-fi characters, as we can see in her roles on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Mr. Temuera Morrison, a New Zealander who plays Boba Fett, is actually legendary in the Star Wars universe because he played the original copy of the clones. He kept one clone for himself and raised him as a son, and this is the character that Temuera plays in The Mandalorian. I love how he brought a bit of Maori Wairua into the role, which means spirit. Mr. Morrison's other famous roles include playing Aquaman's dad in Aquaman and Moana's dad in, well, Moana. He also has the distinction of being in Ryan Reynolds' worst movie choice ever, The Green Lantern, playing none other than Abin Sur, the person who gives Green Lantern his magic ring and sets him up on the path to a blockbuster failure. Coming back to chapter 14 of The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand and Mandalorian can't stop the Dark Troopers of Moff Gideon from abducting the kid, or rather, kidnapping the kid. This is the part where I thought that Mando could have used his arm controls to call up his jetpack and pursue them. In the end, he goes back to Nevarro to meet up with Cara Dune and request her help to get a prisoner out of prison. This prisoner is played by Bill Burr, who had an episode in the first season. So there we have it, you're all caught up with the trivia and most of the story. Let's see what chapter 15 drops for us today. May the Force be with you, and please, stay safe, wear a mask. This is the way.